name is Justin. I'm a public sector associate here at Ecopia. I mainly work with municipalities and counties, providing them with impervious surface data for those stormwater utility fee calculations. So for today's agenda, we're going to walk through Ecopia's processes. We'll go through those benefits of leveraging AI. We'll talk about what's happening in Billings. We'll go through some impervious surface spotlight, and then we'll check out the data in the end. So although this slide is an animation, it paints a good picture in terms of what we're trying to do, and that's create a digital twin. This is something a lot of people talk about and advertise, but not everyone is able to actually execute on this product. If you walk through the halls at ESRA-UC a couple weeks ago, digital twin is everywhere. Geospatial data is the foundation of the future, especially this 3D data that we're looking at here. So all the layers seen are digital layers, and this is what we're trying to create. So once we have this digital representation of the Earth, then a lot of very interesting analytics then become possible because of this. So some of those use cases include determining where to place solar panels on roofs, helping municipal government manage infrastructure, and supporting property insurance risk assessment. So what we're trying to do is create a fit for mapping or a fit for purpose approach. So we want to maximize the utility of a data input to reach the output that is required, being that high precision digital map. So we can operate on two different functions here. So we can either leverage the imagery, that you guys already subscribe to, or if you don't have, up-to-date imagery, or you only get it every 4 years, we can source that for you. So we have relationships with Hexagon, Vexcel, and Nearmap. So we have access to all of their 2024 3-inch imagery off the shelf. But at the end of the day, that end goal is the creation of that vector map, whether we leverage your imagery or we source it ourselves. So we are an AI company, but we're also a geospatial services company that leverages the power of deep learning to extract data from imagery sources. So we recognize the importance of the human input, especially on the quality control side of things. So we guarantee that all of our products exceed 95% geometric accuracy, effectively meeting that of a GIS professional. So we have 3 layers of quality control to ensure we're hitting that 95%. If the data set does not meet that threshold, it gets fixed and retrains the model until we get that vector output that we're looking for. So there's an old saying, fast, cheap, good, pick 2. So I'm sure everyone here is very familiar with manual digitization, as it's something you might have taken care of at one point in your career or hired somebody to take care of. When it comes to this approach, there's a high level of accuracy, generally speaking. However, you kind of run into some problems when you start dealing with larger areas, extracting more features. You start to run into those interpretation issues as well as the scalability issues. And then not to mention, it's very expensive over long periods of time, just paying for those man hours to delineate all those features and create all those digital maps. So on the flip side of the coin there, got automated softwares. eCognition, great example of one of these. However, not the easiest programs to use. They say it takes a PhD to be able to operate eCognition. It is a rules-based extraction, so it's able to process large areas at a low cost, but you're not able to get those updates very quickly. So where does Ecopia enter the mix? So Ecopia is creating data sets that are guaranteed to be over 95% accurate. And when I say 95% accurate, our data produced is going to be higher quality than what you would have produced through a heads-up digitization approach. The data is normalized as it is a rules-based approach, so you're always getting that consistent output. And we will deliver the data to you in a very fast period of time. I like to say 4 weeks from project start date. So once we have that imagery, whether it's provided by you guys or we source it ourselves, once we have that imagery, we're on the clock, and you'll get that data set back within 4 weeks. Municipalities struggle with updated, consistent data, and this is something that we can bring to the table. So throwing a lot of numbers here at you, 95%, 4 weeks. These metrics aren't just things, I can throw around and, promise you the moon and the stars. These are all baked into the contract. So, we're held accountable to that 4-week delivery timeline. We're held accountable to that 95% accuracy mark. So these just aren't things that I can kind of just loosely throw around. So just to kind of recap the past couple of slides here, 3 points I just kind of want to stress are just the accuracy, the scalability, and the currency of our data. So now into the fun stuff. So my journey with Billings began back in June of 2022. I reached out to one of Tyler's colleagues, Jeffrey. He mentioned that the city's public works department hoped to use impervious surface data to set its commercial stormwater utility rates. So I provided Jeff with a demo, some quotes, and he passed this information along to Tyler, who said he was impressed and he liked our work with the demos. So from there, Jeff and I exchanged some emails over the next couple of months, just kind of staying in touch. And then in March of 2023, Tyler reached out to me and said that their IT and GIS departments were coordinating an effort to acquire both aerial and impervious surface data for the City of Billings. So over the next 2 months, Tyler and I went back and forth over calls and emails, defining their needs and figuring out which land cover layers, would be best suited for that stormwater utility fee calculation. So the next step from there was just waiting for that imagery to be delivered. And we had data in Billings' hands by the end of the summer. So let's dive into this a little bit further here. So I'm going to start this off at about like a 10,000 foot view, and then I'm going to kind of bring it in much more granular. So let's talk about what the challenge is with impervious surfaces. So as urban sprawl increases across the US, the challenge for most cities is that their sewage infrastructure has been in place in most cases for honestly over 100 years. So what happens is we continue to build all this beautiful infrastructure above ground, these new homes and roads and highways and all these things. But we're not thinking about what's going on below ground. And what we end up seeing is a significant reduction of water infiltration. But then we end up seeing that increase in water runoff. And what this has led to is roughly $9 billion of urban flooding annually, due to stormwater runoff alone. And there's also the ecological impact as well. And what we're seeing is over 600,000 miles of rivers and streams and 13 million acres of lakes, reservoirs, and ponds are now considered impaired. So the US government has acknowledged that there is a problem. And what they've done is establish regulations through the Clean Water Act requiring municipalities and counties to have programs in place to support this, whether it's MS4 permitting or just, regulations through the Clean Water Act itself. However, there are challenges that exist within these regulations. And, those challenges that the government didn't align these regulations to a sustainable funding source. So it's estimated that there's $67.2 billion needed over the next 20 years to be able to sustain stormwater infrastructure across the country. There are loan programs out there and there's tons of grants and things like that. But those are more, fixes for today and tomorrow. Those aren't really going to help you 5, 10, 15 years down the line. And with that, roughly 2,000 municipalities across the US have integrated a stormwater utility fee to support these efforts. And 60% of them indicated that the biggest challenge was the lack of sustainable funding. And this is why they introduced a stormwater utility fee within their communities. So building off that previous slide there, in 1987, the Clean Water Act was amended to address the growing requirement for a program to support stormwater runoff. And that is when, the original water charge kind of came into the picture in Billings. With that original charge, it was based off of property square footage and zoning classifications, a very dated process, and wasn't the most fair approach for the citizens of Billings. So the city identified the needs to modernize the stormwater program, and it needed a more fair and equitable approach that was backed by accurate data to calculate these fees. So anytime citizens hear about a new tax, they immediately have ill will towards this. I mean, fair, nobody likes a new tax. But a stormwater utility fee tax is kind of a different one. This money is being reinvested back into the community. It's a tax to help directly the citizens and make sure that infrastructure doesn't flood during these 100-year storm events that are seemingly happening more and more often. So Billings also faced some challenges with the gaps in their impervious surface data set, and they were dealing with lots of growth in their city. Tyler and his team needed a solution that met his accuracy requirements, but also, didn't take 6 months to a year to deliver. As I mentioned earlier, urban sprawl is happening at a rapid rate across the country, and it's integral to have a source of truth that is accurate and scalable that you can rely on. So it's really important to understand 4 key points as we talk about data integration and build out. So those 4 pillars are updates, flexibility, optimization, and feedback. And then those 4 pillars kind of fit within these 3 stages here. So stage 1 is collecting. So we want to define that scope of work, collect the relevant data, and extract the data in a format that enables updating year over year. Stage 2 is just integrating that data. So we want to ensure that we're optimizing the resources you guys have at hand, combine it with any other relevant information, whether it's parcel data, right-of-way data, or any other existing vector layers you guys have already created. And then finally, stage 3 is just being able to maintain that data set. So we want to align with your goals and ensure we have a set update schedule. We want to make sure this is a simple and repeatable approach for consistency and reliability purposes. So kind of present day operations, what's going on now. So Billings acquired a 16-layer land cover data set ranging from your standard impervious classifications, your buildings, your roads, sidewalks, driveways, all the way down to some unpaved features and compacted surfaces as well. So by leveraging an AI-based product, the city now has a scalable solution for these updates. As I mentioned earlier, all products exceed 95% geometric accuracy. So that kind of ticks off the box for Tyler. And then, as of more recently, as was mentioned earlier, that the new stormwater utility fee was recently passed in Billings. So everybody's hard work from this call paid off in the end. But this is just a quick little example of the data that they are working with in Billings. So as you can see there, you've got paved roads, bridges, compacted surfaces, decks, unpaved sidewalks, unpaved roads, sports grounds, and different features like that. So thank you, everybody. We can now jump into Q&A. If everyone, presenters want to join me, there we go. Perfect. So first off, we'll kind of go through the polls here. Do you use geospatial data in your day-to-day work? Overwhelming amount of you, 92% said yes. I would hope almost all of you would say yes, so that is good. Next one was just what role do you identify with the most? And it looks like we have a lot of GIS specialists and civil engineers here. And lastly, what is the biggest challenge with the geospatial data you use? So a mix between inaccuracy, incomplete data, sharing with other agencies, and sourcing the right data. Now I'm going to jump into the questions. All right, this one is for Tyler, Greg, and Toggy Moore. But Tracy was asking, what maintenance are you doing that costs $5 million a year for 15 years? For example, number of inlets cleaned, pipe feet jetted, etc. So I'll give you guys the floor.
Okay. So we're talking deferred maintenance on this one. So this is the lack of doing, this is to get the system back up to snuff. So annual operation and maintenance from the city street and traffic can keep and maintain the equipment. So some of the things that we're talking for the $5 million over 15 years are culverts. The city has quite a few culverts that are just collapsing out there, and there are many culverts that need to be replaced. There are storm trunk lines that are clay tile. There's other ones that have been that are at their useful life and are structurally complicated. It's paying for the replacement of all of that, all those facilities to get them back up to snuff. I think ponds are one thing. Open channels. They're more reactive, and there's a lot of maintenance cleanup just to get the channels up in the air. So when we're talking about that $5 million for 15 years, we're really focusing on deferred maintenance, not the street and traffic side of things.
And to follow up on that, Greg, a big component of that, just in some numbers here, we have about 110,000 lineal feet of pipe that we've identified as needing to be replaced. Of the 300 miles, so that was half of that cost. And then you mentioned the culverts. We have a lot of irrigation canals irrigation ditches that traverse through the city. And we don't own the canals and ditches, but we do own the culverts. And a lot of those are corrugated metal pipe. They are well past their useful life. And it seems like every time we get into that, it's $200,000 at a time. So that's where we're at deferred maintenance.
Perfect. Thank you, gentlemen. We have another question here coming from Justin. Was a tiered system for residential fees considered?
I can jump here and answer, stealing your thunder here, Toggy. It was considered.
Go for it.
We did have, as part of the advisory committee that we formed, we talked about a tiered rate structure. We talked about rate credits as well. There's a lot of flexibility that you could do. Once you have all this data, you could really start to have layers of complexity. We intentionally did not do that. Our rate structure hadn't been changed since 1977. And so we made the kind of cognitive decision to walk into this new rate structure instead of run into it. Many other communities do have that tiered rate structure and rate credits. We would like to get there as well. But what we made the cognizant decision, let's get off the ground walking before we start running. But with this Ecopia data, we have that flexibility to have as many tiers as we need to. And our mayor asked that direct question, and our answer is it took us 4 years to get to this point. We're obviously slow movers, so I could see us getting there in the future with that.
Perfect. Thank you, Tyler. I got some more questions here. This is coming in from Adam. So on the proposed solution, is number 4 in the table shown, to deferred maintenance across 15 years, do you suggest the gap will be met with expanded city crews or contracted services?
Yep. Great question, Adam. I'll jump in here again. Sorry, guys. So what DOWL and FCS did as well is we projected out, we will need more staff over time. This is a lot of work to do with our current staff. The level of service package that council selected, it did require, I believe, 7 to 10 new staff members, mostly on the maintenance side. But we want to be very thoughtful. Some of this will be contracted, some of this will be staff. It'll take a healthy combination of both contracted work and new city staff to accomplish this much work in this time period.
Perfect. Thank you, Tyler. And actually, this one is coming your way again. Were all of the 16 layers derived from the imagery utilized when updating the rate program? If not, which ones were utilized?
Yeah, I would say all 16 were. What we were really after is, because they all speak to a surfaces or property's impervious nature. And for City of Billings, we classify compacted surfaces as impervious in nature. They do produce runoff. So when we talk about sidewalks, pavements, roofs, compacted surfaces, anything that really kind of produces runoff is what we were after. And it did kind of take the full package.
Awesome. All right. One more question here just to wrap it up. Coming in from Eileen. How did you determine the quantity of pipe needing replacement? Did you do video inspection, or is it just based on asset age / pipe material?
You want me to take that one, Tyler?
Yeah, Greg, go ahead. I've talked too much.
Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, a lot of this, through the phase 1 effort, we didn't have as much video on it. We had, maybe a mile of pipe or something along those lines. But between phase 1 and phase 2, the city's street and traffic were doing a lot more TV, and they had a contracted project out there where they were collecting a lot more data. And so we ultimately came up with the replacement pipe based on those videos and the ratings that street and traffic provided to us about whether there was sediment clean out needed or if there was a structural deficiency on it. And then we took that and extrapolated it to the other areas that were not TV.
Awesome. All right, everyone. Well, I just want to thank you all for attending today. I also want to thank my fellow presenters.